Hello and welcome to the next episode of my Sound Design Here Create series. This is Project 2, Bloom and Wilt, Episode 4, Mix and Finish. Let's quickly recap what we've been doing. This series is a sound design series where we take on a series of projects based on some media and a prompt. In this case, the media is this flower and a time-lapse video of it, and the prompt is as follows. Here is a flower. Create the sound of it blooming, then wilting. What we've done so far is spent some time coming up with a few ideas, made a placeholder sound on the Novation Base Station 2. On the Novation Peak, we've made a more usable sound, which was adjustable through Aftertouch, the mod wheel, and any other parameters. Then we recorded automations or drew automations into a DAW to make that sound reflect the motion of the flower in the time-lapse video. And then I said I was going to make multiple recordings of this, which I have indeed done. So here's the time-lapse video. Let's have a quick look at it to remind ourselves. So we can see the head of the flower raises. We can see the petals start to expand and mature from the outside towards the inside. As the flower comes to its full size, petals keep coming out, but then the petals towards the outer edge start to wilt until eventually the entire flower wilts. So this movement and this variation of different ranks of petals we've reflected in the timbre of the sound and in the shape of the sound with respect to the filter motion. Now, I mapped out the times in the video where each of the events was happening and used those to guide the automation lines. The project in the DAW started to look a bit messy, so I didn't bother showing that to you here, but I'm going to show you the audio that was created, and you'll note a couple of things about it. So, this is the project containing all of the audio. First thing you will probably note is the amplitude of the audio is not very high. Secondly, if I play it, you'll note that it's actually quite quiet overall. The main reason that it's quiet overall is that I set my volumes with the goal of playing all of the notes at once, but then I only played one at a time. And in practice, this could be problematic, but I decided that any noise that gets introduced by amplifying here probably just adds something to the timbre. But rather than leave all of the leading parts of the audio in, what I did is I shrunk all of these audio parts in to include only a couple of seconds of audio before the actual sound of that part starts coming in. And then also, when I played this originally, I decided things were getting too busy too quickly. So I chose a moment in time. It's about 41. By the way, I made one bar 1 second long here. At about the 41st bar was when all of the different parts had come in. So I put fades on the beginning of each of these parts, ending around the 41st bar. So we get a gradual ramp as all the different parts come in. And then at the end, I've made them all fade out from when that audio approximately ends. So if there's any noise, the noise remains in, a noise from the signal, and then it fades out. Now, all of these tracks are set to the default level of -10 dB. So if I play this, you'll probably hear that it's very quiet. I'm going to skip in. So hopefully you can hear that the level is quite low there. What I'm going to do is adjust the volume of these parts to try and fix that level. But what I want to do before that is figure out, I'm figuring that some of the lower frequency stuff is going to be a bit too bassy and some of the high frequency stuff will be too high pitched. So I'm going to quickly listen to some of them soloed and try and figure out how much I like them. So on very quick inspection, I think probably this 6th one is the one that I like the pitch of most. So what I'm going to do is bring it up to 0 dB. I also thought that the high-pitched ones sound a bit too high-pitched. So around this one, I'm going to formulaically make each one lower 2 dB quieter and each one higher 4 dB quieter. So this one's going to be -2, this one's going to be -4, this one's going to be -6, -8, and then the last one will be -10 as it already is. And then if I was doing this on a mixer, my other mixer has more outputs, I would probably be manually shaping these, but this is probably the easiest way to do it here. So this is 4, 8, 12, -16, -20, -24. So that, let me... Okay. The other thing which I was always talking about doing is making some of the parts narrower and some of them wider in the stereo spectrum. So what I'm thinking of doing then is inserting this tool device, and I'm going to go through and drop it on all of these. All I'm doing is going down through the tracks and pasting it. And then what I want to do is make each one wider or narrower by some certain degree. So, okay, so a calculator tells me that each one needs to be about 18% narrower than the last to work correctly. So the first one is going to be 200. The next one is going to be 182. Then 164. 146. 128. 110. Slightly boring doing it like this, but it works. 92. 74. 56. 38. 20. And let's leave this last one at 2. So I now have the bassiest one going to be the widest and the highest frequency one going to be the narrowest. So let's just... So I think this whole thing could do with being a bit louder just for the sake of the sound design. So I'm going to just turn up the master. I'm going to turn it back down afterwards probably. Maybe even be a little louder than that. So I'm going to insert the tool, and I'm going to use the gain on that. So let's say 12 dB. This can go back down to 0. Gain can go up to 18. Okay, so we should have a decent volume level here. So I think the space is sounding okay, but I think I'd like something that makes this sound a little bit more explicitly spatial. So the obvious thing for that is a reverb. I'm going to put a reverb on a send. So let me, I guess you've noticed by now that I quite like the convolutional reverbs, and I think the St. Peter's Cathedral should be a good one to use. What I'll do is I'll pick this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so this is set to 0 dB, and that's the amount of send I have to the mix here. And what I can do is let's do this. Okay, so hopefully, did I do that correctly? Sorry, I was trying to use a shortcut there. That's 0, 3. Okay, I think I managed to do that. Yep. So what I have now is this one is sending 0 dB to the convolutional reverb, and each of the other ones is sending 3 dB less to it. My thinking here is it would be nicest if the reverb rang out at the end, but I'd like some contribution for all of the different parts here. So what I'll do is I'll start this playing. So I can solo the convolution because these sends are still going to arrive, so I think it needs a bit of gain. So I guess you can see the levels here. The level going into the reverb is not that high. I think the shape is working fine. I like the way that last of those tones comes in, sort of ringing. I haven't actually played it from the beginning for you, so I will, but you'll find the beginning is a little dull, not much is happening. So I'm already thinking it could do with being a little rougher. So I probably need maybe some saturation just to add a bit more texture. I think the convolution is adding enough width. I was considering adding a chorus as well. Like the way it fades and all of the lower pitched ones kind of go out earlier, and we're left this little ringing. I like the way that sounds. Yeah, so I think what it could do with is maybe something like a saturator, and then something, probably just an EQ, just to try and balance out the frequencies. So first, let's go saturator. And so these curves here represent how the drive function is being applied for positive and negative voltages, effectively. These are not voltages, obviously. So this allows you to adjust how much asymmetry this drive brings in. So what I want to do here is I want probably quite a wide knee. So I don't want a very sudden onset of this behavior at very high frequencies. I don't really need to do anything at the low level. The way the saturation works is these curves are mapping positive and negative voltages to some other values. And saturation is really how that curvature happens. You can specify how the curvature is at high and at low amplitude. So effectively you can do something like expanding or compression using this method to some vague extent, but that's not really what I want to do. Let's see. So another thing I quite like the idea of is adding a little animation to the drive. So maybe I want the drive to peak maybe at -7. It can start about -2, so I'm going to add an automation line here. So the drive can start about -2 and it can peak at around -7. Oh, I was actually reading this parameter and not that parameter. Let me do this again. So -2 is about +4 dB, and -7 is about +12 dB. Okay, that makes more sense. So let's move this up to +12 dB. And I had this one around -3, which corresponds to 6 dB. Okay, so remember I got rid of the tools, so that's not increasing the volume anymore. So let's go from the beginning again. I'm going to skip in a bit. Yeah, so now the saturation is adjusting something about the harmonics as the sound proceeds. So next thing I'm going to do is bring in an EQ, just the simplest type of EQ I've got, this DJ EQ. And I think what I'm going to do is just listen to the bands a little. So I want the lowest band to only just have some pitch in it. And the highest band only just to have some of the highest pitch in. And then I can try and balance these things out. Jump to the middle. Okay, so I've been messing around with this quite a lot, and we haven't actually watched it alongside the video. But I think this is starting to sound like I imagined, and for me that's one of the most important things in sound design. I have to start with a concept of what I want the sound to be like, and then I make changes to move towards that, and then I iterate. So broadly, my process would be listen, think, change, and repeat. So I'm listening, how close is it to what I want? I'm thinking, how do I approach the sound that I want? This is where you apply the craft that you learn. Then you make a change, and then you repeat the process to move towards what you're looking for. So let's watch the video of the flower, and let's listen to the audio alongside it. So I think that is just about what I was looking for. It's possible there are a few tweaks I need. Maybe I'll adjust the volume. Maybe I'll add a little bit of automation to some of the parameters that I have in place. But essentially, that is the audio as I wanted it to be. So let me save this project. And what I'll do then is go and make sure there's no fine tuning that I need. I'll export this, I'll combine it with the video, and then I'll upload the final piece. So I think that brings us effectively to the end of this second project, Bloom and Wilt. I hope you've been enjoying Sound Design Here Create. I hope you've enjoyed both projects, and I hope you'll come and join me for some more projects in future. But in any case, and most importantly, I'd like to say thank you all very much for watching, and goodbye.